Welcome to the Sustainable Conversation series. And today we have a special guest, the General Counsel of Fortum Corporation, Nora Steiner-Forsberg, featured. I am Samuli Tarkiainen. I work as an attorney at law and a partner in Castrén Snellman, the leading Finnish energy law firm. I practice, in addition to energy law, also industrial construction and projects. But without further ado, I let Nora to introduce herself.
Thanks, Samuli, and thanks for the invitation. So I'm the General Counsel and a member of the executive management team of Fortum, which is a leading clean energy company in the Nordics. And before my career at Fortum, I've worked in law firms in Brussels and Helsinki, and I have also been a judge at the Market Court.
Great. So we have a lot of expertise now on the discussion. So as the background, we all know, and you know it very well, that this autumn has been extremely busy for us energy lawyers. There are a lot of different projects promoting the energy transition and sustainable development. And of course, in the market, the price changes have been huge. The electricity price development has caused a lot of impact on the industries and developments around the value chain. And already before this year, the IPCC and other players, they have stressed in their reports that the emission reduction initiatives, they are not enough. We need to limit the global warming and do really more and act faster. And of course, this year has shown even more developments. Russia's brutal attack on Ukraine and the resulting sanctions by EU and international actors have really shown ultimately how heavily still some European countries are dependent on fossil fuels and energy based on that. So we basically have simultaneously the climate crisis as well as the new energy shock in Europe at the moment. So if there's kind of anything positive in this situation, I would say that it can be so that certain of these same solutions can be used for solving both of these difficult situations. And of course, at the EU level, a lot of things have been done already. The Green Deal strategy has been imposed, and it basically packages a lot of these initiatives. And in response to this energy shock, this spring also saw this vast Repower EU package, which aims at boosting unions and the member countries' energy independence. So a lot of things have happened and more is coming. We have hydrogen and very much in the pipeline as well. And here at Castrén, we have of course done a lot of work on this sphere and been working in various projects, and also have been happy to assist the Fortum team in this pioneering data center project in Espoo, the second biggest city in Finland. And if that project is ultimately realized, then up to 60% of the heat in Espoo can be generated by utilizing this recovered waste heat. So a lot of things are going on in the value chain, and wind power is boosting, etc. So it's really interesting times. But if we go to the main topic, Nora, how is the Nordic energy transition faring at the moment?
Yeah, thanks, Samuli, and thanks for the very good introduction. As you say, we've both have quite a lot to do, I think, recently. But I think really that it is great that we are discussing now here today the energy transition, because it is the best solution also to the current crisis. It is a way now to reduce the carbon footprint and also reduce the dependency that we have in Europe on the import of fossil fuels. So I think the energy crisis is only making everything happen faster than it would have happened without the crisis. So in the Nordics. So I think the situation is, of course, it is different in every European country, and in the Nordic countries, the situation is maybe easier than in some other countries, or at least different, because we are more diversified and we are largely independent in terms of energy supply in the Nordics. So power production, it has been almost fully decarbonized already. We have hydro and we have nuclear, which are then the backbone of our energy system in the Nordics. And they are providing stable, flexible electricity, then CO2 free. And then, of course, like Samuli was also mentioning, so wind is boosting. There is a lot of new wind being built. It's growing fast. And of course, this is thanks to our very good natural conditions. And then also the well-functioning permitting and regulatory framework that we have in the Nordics. But then also on top of this power sector, so also in heat, actually, this decarbonization is well under its way in the Nordics. And so here gas is not much used in heating, but the heating is more based on district heating in large cities and communities. We are moving from fossil fuel to utilization of, for example, forest biomass. We have, of course, a lot of that here in Finland. And then also, Samuli, you were mentioning this recovered waste heat from, for example, data centers or then wastewater, which is increasingly utilized also for heating purposes. So overall, I think the Nordic energy system is rather resilient. We are not dependent on a single source of energy, and we have quite a good and balanced mix of different sources. And also we have very good interconnections between the Nordic countries. So we are one Nordic power market. So this is good. But then at the same time, to fully decarbonize the societies, in addition to the power production decarbonization, we also should decarbonize then industry and transport. So and this will require even more clean power to be produced, and also clean gases, like you were also referring, Samuli, to hydrogen. So in fact, to reach full carbon neutrality in the Nordics, we will be needing to have a lot of more clean power. So there will be more wind, and there will be maybe even new nuclear in the Nordics.
Yes, exactly, and of course that has a huge impact on the whole value chain. And we are seeing, for example, battery storage projects and developments as well. So it's a huge change. Finland has itself the target of becoming carbon neutral by 2035. So how should the energy system look like then?
So what is really important is that there is a good balance in the system. So it will need to have this kind of stable power, base power, and it will need to have also variable power, and then it will need to have also flexible generation for the system to function well and reliably. So now in the recent years, of course, the variable generation like wind, it has been growing significantly, and at the same time then baseload capacity has been disappearing from the market. So what is of course important is that the system perspective is also borne in mind when developing the system further. So I think also the current market model should be complemented with some mechanism to ensure that we have this balance in the system. We need stable power, which would be, for example, nuclear. And then we need flexible power like hydro or then batteries, you were also mentioning. And then we need this variable like wind and solar. So if you can think of a pie cut in 3 pieces, I think you need all these 3 equally large pieces in the pie for the system to be resilient and well functioning.
Exactly. And what has really surprised me is that we are seeing even solar projects in the Nordics on an industrial scale. So that kind of was very surprising for me. In Africa and India, I understand it, but apparently it's now profitable in the Nordics as well. How does regulation, if we jump into our legal roles, how does regulation affect the energy transition? Is it the driving force, or is it just making the transition more complicated?
I think definitely we should look very positively at regulation. So you need to have different layers of regulation. Of course, now when we have the acute energy crisis in Europe, regulation to solve the acute situation is of course necessary in the short term, but then also longer term regulation enables this kind of energy transition. So it is important also from that perspective, and both EU level, national level. So it's going to be most likely a rather complex regulatory framework, but we are going to have in the field of energy going forward. So now, of course, in the middle of the crisis, we understand all eyes are really on security of supply, affordable energy. So these skyrocketing prices that are very well known for all of us. So they are, of course, putting an immense burden on our European societies, businesses, households, so on. So it is, of course, very important and necessary that there is some intervention in our current situation. What is important is, of course, that these interventions that happen with regulation, that they are then kind of commensurate, and then they are limited to what is necessary in the situation. So on the one hand, talking about these high electricity prices, so the governments are, of course, tightening regulations, intervening strongly, and to overcome the crisis. So there has been, for example, in Finland and Sweden, the governments have made available billions of euros of financing to help companies then manage, for example, these extreme collateral requirements that we have had on the power derivative markets. But then what is really important is that these kind of interventions, they are limited in duration to the crisis. Then also what has happened, of course, is that temporarily, because of the scarcity of energy supply, so we have needed to temporarily emit more CO2 in many countries. So we have to now resort to coal as a source of as a fuel over cleaner gas-fired power generation. And we too at Fortum, actually, we are bringing back from the reserves a coal-fired, the last coal condensing plant in Finland, which has not run commercially since 2017. But this setback then must not divert Europe from its path to the energy transition and to the climate neutrality. So the net zero target, of course, is something that we need to adhere to. And I think here regulation plays an important role. So we should grasp the moment now to transfer as Europe to transform our energy production into a greener, more sustainable, cleaner production. And this way really then make us less dependent and also having access to cheaper electricity. So the US, I think, is leading way here. They have enacted this Inflation Reduction Act, a massive investment program for renewables and hydrogen, with which they are planning to catch up massively in the entire renewable energy value chain. So Europe should also emerge from the crisis by investing in clean energy, of course, for its own independence, for its own economy, but also then for the global climate. So I think Europe really needs to act jointly here. And of course, when talking about the Nordics and solar and wind, so we see great possibilities, especially in the Nordics and Iberia, for wind and then for solar respectively. We have a lot of space. We have great natural conditions for wind, for example, here in the Nordics. So this electricity then, the clean electricity can be then used to electrify processes and to produce clean gases like hydrogen.
Absolutely. And I really hope that the EU can really manage the kind of the classifications of hydrogen so that we can be really in par with the US with these actions and initiatives, because there will be a lot of competition in that front. But if we jump into our legal roles here, so what do you think? What role do as lawyers play, and what role should we play in this energy transition?
Well, energy is of course a highly regulated business. So I think we lawyers can do a lot in shaping the regulation alongside with our other colleagues. And I think there are certain green business models like hydrogen, which is really relying on the right regulatory framework. And of course, now we're talking about the government interventions to ease this energy crisis situation for companies. Of course, that is a topic for EU competition law, for example. So overall, in Europe, we can do a lot to shape the energy, to have a holistic approach to this energy transition, and to speed it up. So it is, in addition to about building more renewables, it is really about new grid investments, about developing the import infrastructure and the transformation of the demand side. So they are just as important to take the transition forward than new renewables, which of course is extremely important too. So while this state intervention is currently really necessary, we must make sure that it is as short term and as well kind of targeted as possible. So for example, price caps, windfall taxes, it must be made sure that they are not made permanent tools, because they would then erode the profitability of the sector in the longer term, which is of course something that is not good, because the industry needs to have then capacity to invest heavily in the coming years to make the transition happen. So, and in order to make the transition happen and the investments happen, what is crucial for the companies and for the sector as a whole is of course clarity and predictability of regulation, and overall this kind of a stability of the regulatory framework. So I think we lawyers can do a lot to help to build our regulation in this manner. And then of course we also can do a lot to effectively implement the already existing regulation. So take, for example, wind investments or transmission line investments. All of that, of course, is subject to regulatory processes that are often very long and subject to many appeals. So I think there we can also do a lot to make it happen efficiently. And but of course, lean legal processes, that is of course only one aspect. So at the same time, what we have experienced is that it is really, really important to keep good contact with your stakeholders, whether it's regulators, municipalities, other stakeholders. Yes. So this will make also the processes faster, smoother, and of course the way to cooperate with all these different stakeholders. You need to be able to earn trust first, and how you then are able to build trust. Of course, that is with accountability, transparency, really working together to achieve the joint goals. So yeah, I think we can do a lot, Samuli, in this field. Yes. As lawyers as well.
Definitely, and it feels like we are doing a lot and have been doing a lot for quite some time. Yeah. But maybe as the last question, maybe a little personal one, what do you enjoy the most in your work in the forefront of this energy transition?
Well, for me personally, I think we at Fortum, so of course our purpose is really to drive the change for a cleaner world, and this is really, really important for me personally as a goal. And I think there are not so many businesses that would have as much societal role, especially today, than energy. So we really have the keys to impact the future of of the planet, and with the solutions that we create and with the energy that we produce, we can really make a difference. I think being a lawyer in the energy industry, so it is a really challenging, but at the same time a really interesting task. So the operating environment and the regulation and the technologies, it's constant flux, and we just need to keep up to speed, and this is really kind of very far from this slow moving conservative sector that maybe before at least some people have thought that the energy industry would be. So this is everything else, I think, currently. Yes. So really, if you want to have a big impact on climate and the future, so I think this is a very good place to be in.
I totally agree, and we are maybe even lucky to kind of be able to act as lawyers in these times in the sphere of energy.
I fully agree, Samuli. Yes.
Yeah, but thank you, Nora. It was so inspirational and very important points that you raised. So thank you for your insights in this matter. So let us continue on the path towards the net zero targets.
Thanks so much, Samuli. Thank you.
Thank you, Nora.